Hey everybody. So today we have a fun one. I watch John Malecki on YouTube, and he does a lot of cool videos where they do like 3 different versions of one thing. An easy one, a medium, and a hard one. Or like a simple one, a more intricate one, and a super fancy one. So we're going to try that today. We're going to do a video where we make 3 different keychains. One super easy, one medium, and one a little bit more advanced. Going to give myself a timer. We're thinking 10 minutes for the first one, half hour for the second one, hour for the third one. I'm just getting some tools sharpened in advance so we can kind of just go for it. So yeah, that's what we're doing today. Okay. So first one, we're going to set a 10-minute timer. That's 10 minutes. I'm going to use this leather, so here we go. So our first one we're going to keep pretty simple. I'm just going to do sort of a straight, just key fob type belt loop thing. Now what I'm going to do for ease of use, this is set to 3/4 of an inch, so I'm just going to cut a 3/4 inch strip. Like that. And that will allow us to use any of the hardware we have floating around, which I haven't even found yet, so I actually have to save some time to do that. So I'm going to bevel this. When you're using, this is like 10-12 ounce leather, you want to make sure you bevel it because this, you can actually get like paper cuts. This is like sharp on the edge. So before we do any sizing, I'm just going to get the beveling done. Oh god, I should organize this. There we go. Alright, so 3/4 inch strap and punch. So I'm not going to use any measurements or anything, I'm just going to kind of wing it. This will be one of our ends. Then what we need to do is skive this down a bit so that we can bend it. I've been working on my flat skiving with a blade like this instead of using the French edger, trying to be able to take off an even amount for long distances. It's not easy. I'm not very good at it yet, but we'll get there eventually. We have, oh god, 4 minutes left, so this is going to be winging it a little bit, but that's okay. So I'm going to fold this over, and I'm just going to punch there, get that centered. There, that's going to be where we attach our split ring, and then this is going to be the top of our snap. But when I do these, I don't like to center them like this because then you don't have anything to grab, so I'm going to put it up tall, or high up on it. Now we got to go to the presses. That there.
Feels like an Olympic trial.
I know, right? This is way too stressful. Okay, so... Ooh, there's 3 minutes left. I don't have any... Oh, here we go. Snap clips. Go like that. Go like that. Did it stick? Yeah, we got it. Okay. So with, I don't know if you see this, with 1 minute to spare, we have our basic simple keychain. You guys have probably all made these plenty of times before. Super useful, super easy, and they age really nice. You'll be able to use this for 20 years easily. You just got to put some oil on it and you're good to go. I like these because all the hardware holds it together, you know? So you don't have to take extra steps. If you're just trying to bang out like a bunch of cheap stuff or a bunch of easy stuff, not cheap in a quality sense, but just, you know, doesn't take a lot of time. So if you're selling at farmers markets, you can charge 10 bucks for these and you're making money. So that's it for our 10. I'm gonna grab a drink and then we'll go to our half-hour version. All right, so this next one, I'm going to set my timer, half hour, and we're going. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm not really cheat, but I'm going to spend a little bit of time making a pattern so that for my hour-long one, I have a pattern to go off of, and then we'll just make a simple version of it for our 30-minute. But I'm going to make a pattern by hand to show you. So we're going to use this one. I like the dimensions of this one that we just made. So all we have to do is measure everything off of that. So we have about 7.5 plus 1, so 8.5 inches. So I already drew my center line, and if you don't have a computer, this is how you make patterns pretty much. It's not super hard.
I do it all the time.
Yeah, that's how Kaylina makes them all the time. So this one I want it to have some shape. I want it to be a little more intricate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by kind of marking out a grid. So I'm making myself a 1-inch thing first, and then a 1/2 inch here. We'll go up 1 inch here. So this will be our fold, and this will be half, and this will be the bottom. Alright, so what I just realized is we can't do these because our hardware isn't going to fit, but we need a curve here for the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my dividers, I'm going to put them right about there. So I want basically to get the distance from here to here to be the same as from here to here, which that's about it. So now I have a perfectly centered mark for where I punch my snap, and then I'm also going to make my curve. Like that. And it never comes out perfect when you're hand drawing, but we'll just pencil that in, and then I'll adjust this mark to be even. There we go. And then I think we're ready to cut this out. I know that I have a 1-inch fold over, so I'm going to make a 2-inch mark here. And I'm going to do my best to do, actually, can we use this? No. Okay. Going to try for a real long skive here. Holy moly, it worked. So we can fold that over now. So next, I'm going to take a 1-inch strap-end punch, and I'm going to round off this edge like that. And this is the Master Tools punch. I absolutely love these. They're super nice. Then we need a tiny punch. We're going to punch our hole for our snap. Now, time check. We have, oh boy, we have 5 minutes. Alright, so I wasn't going to do this, but I had to step away for 10 minutes. So I'm going to add 10 minutes to the clock because I really want to show you guys. I was going to try to do everything in 20 minutes instead of 30. But I'm going to add 10 minutes just so we can go and do pretty much everything we want to do for our 30-minute session, 30-minute version. So now that we have a little more time, we don't have to fully rush. I'm going to finish trimming up my cut here so that it's perfect, and then I'm going to go get my water. So this is just a manual edge creaser. We're not going to do any stitching because we're not going to have any time. I just have water here. I'm just going to case this. And casing is just dampening the leather. We're not wet molding it, we're just getting it damp. Then, once I have this cased, we're going to go in with our creaser, and you can kind of just set, this is a cheap one. I got like from Japan, I ordered it from Japan like years ago. We're just going to go in and make our edge crease here. Now the problem with these is that they're really not great on curves. But you can see they do a pretty good job with just straights. If you case the leather. All right. I'm also not good with a creaser, but Then we're going to go back and grab our edge beveler once again. And before we burnish, I want to add a little color to this, but we obviously don't have time for things to dye things and let them dry. But we cased our leather, so what we can do is we can add a little bit more water. We can take some canvas and we can literally just burnish the top grain. And this will act just like burnishing an edge does, and it'll darken us up a lot. And kind of give like a vintagey look. And it's going to be splotchy, probably till the end of the video. Once it dries out, we get the other project done. But you'll see at the end that it'll be kind of shiny and look a little more aged. So that's good for now. Now we got to basically just do the same thing we did the last one. We're at the starting point for the last one basically. So we're going to sand down these edges. I'm going to use water to burnish this one. In my experience, water will give you a darker edge than gum trag or toconol or whatever. And because we burnished the rest of it with water, so it'll already look kind of vintagey, the darker edge will kind of go with the look of the rest of it. So just like the other one, because we're using this real thick stuff, I'm going through first and just slicking with a tool handle to lay those fibers down before I go in with canvas and polish it back up. Okay, so I want to put one of our signature split rings on this one. It's a little more fancy, but you can see it's a little too big. So the way you can do that, this is a 1-inch strap. It probably should have been like a 3/4. I'm just going to line this up here and make a mark like there and there. And then what we can do is we can punch a hole there, punch a hole there, and then take our X-Acto blade and cut that out. And what that's going to do is make us a little notch that our split ring will slide into. See? So with that done, we're pretty much in the home stretch. I'm going to go over the press. You guys already saw it once. We're going to do the same thing again. Alright, so with about 4 minutes left, here's our finished product. There we go. Actually, we'll rotate that so that's in there. That's super nice looking. So we have our 10-minute, our half hour, which realistically was, once you have the pattern, that's also a 10-minute, but you have to make the pattern. So the next one, we have our hour-long extravaganza, where I think we're going to try to do some stitching. But this is making me break a sweat having to stress out like this, so I'm going to take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back and we'll get started on it. Alright, we're going to try to do a little skiving. So I'm going to set my dividers to give myself a little skive. And this will just give it a little dimension, hopefully. This is going to be kind of a tough skive, so it might just mean that I'm biting off more than I can chew and I have to recut this. But we're going to give it a go. So on this one, I want to have like the attachment point on its own separate loop that needs to be 3/4 of an inch. Now here's a little trick. Most rulers are 1 1/4 inch wide, and I'm using a cutting mat with a 1/2 inch grid on it. So if you want to cut 1/4 inch increments, you line up your ruler with the back line. So we'll put that there, and you can see we have 1/2 inch and 3/4. I do this all the time. This is one of my favorite tricks. There we go. And now while the glue is drying, before we stick everything together, we can get this ready because we're going to apply some some of the non-stick, or those non-stretch tape. So this is the double stick, not double stick, it's a single stick. This is like a fabric, very, very thin, so it's going to prevent this from stretching. But we want to make sure, since this is going to be completely folded in half the whole time that it exists pretty much, we want to fold this in half too so we don't get a lot of wrinkles before we stick it in there. So what I'm going to do is, I have this folded in half. I'm just going to kind of stick that in there. The only thing we want to make sure of is that we're not sticking out the sides. We can trim the top and the bottom. I mean, the sides are fine to trim too, but I just prefer to try to not trim the sides if I don't have to. Then I gotta go over to the corner and trim that down. So this modification, unlike our second one, which is like full thickness, I want this one to taper down. So I'm going to use this as a little guide here and just kind of make some marks. Take a 1/4 inch off either side, and then using my skiving knife, or my straight knife I guess, I'm going to use the grid on my cutting board, which I use a lot. It's really good for fast stuff. And I'm just going to line that up with 1 inch and do a taper on one side, and line that up with 1 inch on the other side and taper that as well. And then we can just kind of zip off that little edge there. And the last thing we're going to do, I'm going to be putting another split ring in. So what I want to do, so I can get a nice tight fit, is cut that curve. So that when this is laying in here, everything moves. You see how that matches up just like that? So this is going to be able to move freely. It's not going to get kind of stuck on anything. Alright, we have 13 minutes left, so I'm going to try, we're going to do some edge creasing on this one too. Just because I like the way that that other one came out. And I'm not saying that I made my stitch line super far in on purpose so it would take less time, but I'm not saying I didn't do that, so I feel like we need something to fill the space. Three minutes left. We're in the home stretch here. You see how our split ring's going to fit perfectly in there. I'm just going to wing this a little bit. I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to go in like that. Then I can make sure that this is lined up. So these are even. Alright, time's up. We're 5 minutes past our 1 hour limit. We have our 10-minute version, our half-hour version, and here's our 1 hour version. So we did This is fully lined. It's burnished. We stitched the whole thing, obviously. And then what I did that was different, where we have a little fold over right here, we have a whole extra piece right here. And we have our signature concho. Now this stitching goes underneath. Obviously, you know, if you were going to make this to sell, you would want to move this out a bit, but because we have the time constraints, it looks fine enough as it is. But yeah, so there we go. So we have a 10-minute version, a half-hour version, a 1-hour version. Do any of them do anything different than the other? No. They all function exactly the same. They're all going to be the same strength. They're all going to last for the same amount of time. Minus possibly having the open fiber here. If this gets wet, this will be more likely to kind of maybe get some mold or something like that. But that's very rare. It's really just a matter of finishing. So it's how far do you want to go? And this was kind of a stretch. If I were making this like if we're making these for customers, like this one in particular, I would probably take an extra half hour. It would probably be an hour and a half worth of, you know, billable labor. But I thought this was a pretty fun project, a little challenge, and I think it demonstrates how simple or detailed that you can go with the same piece that essentially does the same thing. Of course, you could always replace these. I did this for aesthetic reasons, but you could always put a spring clip in there too, same size. So I will put a link in the description. Years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we did a version of this key ring, and it's really fun to make. We have a pattern for $1 or $2. I'll put that in the description if you want to make it. But let me know, or let us know, what you guys thought about this whole challenge. A big thanks to John for starting this, or he was the first one I saw do it on YouTube, so thanks for letting us rip you off. And thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.